Belle Isle sits on the James River near downtown Richmond, Virginia. Today it's filled with walking and biking trails, climbers and families escaping the noise of the city. But during the American Civil War, this island saw thousands of Union soldiers who were imprisoned here. It was an open-air prison, a place full of hunger, disease, and death. When the Civil War began in 1861, neither the Union nor the Confederacy expected the war to last long. Both sides believed the war would be over quickly, and because of that, almost no planning was done for prisoners of war. Early in the conflict, captured soldiers were often paroled. They gave their word not to fight until formally exchanged. Then they were sent home. This system worked until major battles like Bull Run, Shiloh, and Antietam produced tens of thousands of captives. By 1862, both sides were holding more prisoners than they could manage. An official prisoner exchange agreement known as the Dix Hill Cartel temporarily eased the crisis. Captured officers were exchanged for a fixed number of enlisted men. This system broke down as the war dragged on, most notably after the Confederates refused to treat captured Union African American soldiers as prisoners of war. They classified them as escaped slaves. Instead of parole, they would be returned to their former masters. By mid-1863, prisoner exchanges had nearly stopped altogether. Over the course of the Civil War, more than 400,000 soldiers would be held as prisoners. An estimated 56,000 would die in captivity, a death toll greater than some of the major battles. Prison camps that had never been designed for long-term confinement became overcrowded, undersupplied, and full of disease. Few cities felt this pressure more relevant than Richmond, Virginia. Richmond was the capital of the Confederate States of America. It was also a major transportation hub, manufacturing center, and supply depot. Richmond became the center of the Confederate prison system, with facilities like Libby Prison, Castle Thunder, and Belle Isle were used to hold captured Union soldiers. Libby Prison, located in a converted tobacco warehouse, became infamous for its overcrowding and disease. But even Libby Prison could not contain the growing number of captives. By 1862, Confederate officials were desperate for additional space. Belle Isle has a long history that predates the Civil War by more than 2 centuries. The island was first recorded by English explorers in 1607, when Captain John Smith mapped the James River. By the late 1700s and early 1800s, Belle Isle became an industrial center. Fisheries, iron and nail factories, and mills operated on the island, powered by the James River. A small community developed there, complete with homes, a school, church, and general store. Despite its industrial use, Belle Isle was known as a place of recreation and natural beauty. Its rocky shoreline and rapids made it a prime location in Richmond. But when war broke out, the island became far more important. In 1862, Belle Isle was converted into a military prison. The island was ringed with earth embankments and guarded by armed Confederate soldiers. Inside, hundreds of canvas tents were erected. Belle Isle was supposed to be temporary, but as Union prisoners continued to arrive, by the thousands, the island became overcrowded and would soon become a place of suffering, and for the men sent there, survival would become a daily battle. The first Union prisoners began arriving on Belle Isle in June 1862. They were marched across a footbridge under guard or ferried by boat from Richmond to the island. Many were already exhausted from war. They were poorly fed and suffering from wounds or sickness. Libby Prison was used to house Union officers. Enlisted men and non-commissioned officers were sent to Belle Isle. Upon arrival, they were searched, stripped of valuables, and assigned to tents. Unlike Libby Prison and Castle Thunder, there were no buildings, only thin canvas pole Sibley tents that housed 10 men, separating them from the elements. Belle Isle was designed as an open-air prison, relying on the James River and 3-foot-tall earthworks to prevent escape. As the war intensified, the number of captives increased. Major battles sent waves of Union soldiers into Confederate hands. Prisoner exchanges slowed and then stopped altogether. Soon tents built for 10 men had 15, then 20, and sometimes more. The ground inside the camp was rocky. There was no adequate latrines. Human waste accumulated near living areas, contaminating water sources and spreading disease. By late 1862 and into 1863, thousands of prisoners were crammed into Belle Isle. Far more than the island was ever meant to hold. Captain Norris Montgomery was the first commandant. He was replaced in August 1862 by the infamous Captain Henry Wirz, who is most known for his time at Andersonville. Confederate supply lines were strained across the entire South, and Union prisoners were hit the hardest. Daily rations were small, often consisting of cornbread and thin pea soup. Meat, when issued, was usually spoiled or barely edible. Prisoners quickly became malnourished. Men traded personal items for scraps of food. Others scavenged for anything they could find. Some prisoners risked punishment by stealing from the guards. Clean drinking water was also limited. The James River flowed nearby, but it was contaminated by sewage and waste from both the camp and from the city of Richmond. With overcrowding, poor sanitation, and malnutrition, disease spread rapidly. Dysentery, typhoid fever, pneumonia, and smallpox plagued the prisoners. The seriously ill were sometimes transferred to hospitals in Richmond, but many never made it that far. Death became common. Bodies were carried out of the camp daily. Some were buried nearby, wrapped in canvas. Exact numbers are difficult to determine, but historians estimate that around 1,000 Union prisoners died at Belle Isle. Life on Belle Isle was brutal during the summer months, but winter turned the prison into something far worse. By late 1863 and early 1864, Belle Isle entered its deadliest phase. Belle Isle offered almost no protection from the weather. The tents that housed prisoners were thin. Many had holes torn in it from the months of use, and due to the prison's overcrowding, many were forced to sleep out in the open. The winter of 1863 to 64 was worse than normal in Richmond. When winter arrived, temperatures dropped. Snow and freezing rain soaked the ground. Prisoners had no floors. Many only had the clothes on their back. If they were captured in the summer months, they lacked proper cold weather gear. Many had no blankets, some had no shoes. Men huddled together inside tents, desperate to stay warm. Men would do exercises just to keep up their body temperature. John L. Ransom described his time at Belle Isle that winter.
Arrived on the morning of November 13th, 7 days after capture, at the south end of the long bridge, ordered out of the cars and into line, counted off, and started for Belle Isle. Said island is in the James River, probably covers 10 or 12 acres, and is right across from Richmond. The river between Richmond and the island is probably a third or half a mile. The long bridge is near the lower part of the island. It is a cold, bleak piece of ground, and the winter winds have free sweep from up the river. Before noon, we were turned into the pen, which is merely enclosed by a ditch, and the dirt taken from the ditch thrown up on the outside, making a sort of breastwork. The ditch serves as a deadline, and no prisoners must go near the ditch. The prison is in command of a Lieutenant Bossier, a rather young and gallant-looking sort of fellow. Is a born Southerner, talking so much like a Negro that you would think he was one if you could hear him talk and not see him. He has 2 rebel sergeants to act as his assistant, Sergeant Height and Sergeant Marks. These 2 men are very cruel, as is also the lieutenant when angered. Outside the prison pen is a bakehouse made of boards, the rebel tents for the accommodation of the officers and guard, and a hospital also of tent cloth. Running from the pen is a lane enclosed by high boards going to the water's edge. At night, this is closed up by a gate at the pen and thrown open in the morning. About half of the 6,000 prisoners here have tents, while the rest sleep and live out of doors.
By this point in the war, the Confederacy was struggling to feed its own people. Prisoners' rations were reduced even further. They were becoming extremely malnourished. Ribs were visible beneath the skin, faces became hollow, and eyes were sunken. Peter DeWitt, the assistant surgeon at Jarvis Hospital in Baltimore, received released prisoners from Belle Isle in 1864 and described their condition.
In a semi-state of nudity, laboring under such diseases as chronic diarrhea, phthisis pulmonalis, scurvy, frostbites, general debility, caused by starvation, neglect, and exposure. Many of them had partially lost their reason, forgetting even the date of their capture, and everything connected with their antecedent history. They resemble, in many respects, patients laboring under cretinism. They were filthy in the extreme, covered in vermin. Nearly all were extremely emaciated, so much so that they had to be cared for even like infants.
Disease spread unchecked through the winter months. Death became routine. By early 1864, Belle Isle had become one of the most feared prison camps in the Confederacy. Rumors of its conditions spread among Union troops. At its peak, thousands of prisoners were confined to the island, far beyond its capacity, and nearly 1,000 men would die. But the true number may never be known. In February 1864, Confederate authorities began reducing the number of prisoners held on Belle Isle, sending many of them further south. Union captives were transferred south by rail to other prison camps, most notably Andersonville, Georgia. Andersonville would become the most infamous and deadliest prison camp of the Civil War. By October 1864, all the prisoners were transferred, and Belle Isle Prison was officially closed. It's estimated that around 20,000 to 30,000 Union soldiers passed through Belle Isle during its operation. Photographs from the men held at Belle Isle show just how horrific the conditions were. Men who looked like walking skeletons. Many would survive prison, but later die in hospitals. Today, Belle Isle is a peaceful place, but its history lives on. It saw some of the most horrible suffering during the war, and its history should always be remembered. I want to thank y'all for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you on the next. Peace.